So, Volcano, what's so good about lava?
Hey guys, my name's DocJade. Welcome back to Factorio's Space Age. Today we are tackling Vulcanus. With some power for radars, we can take a look at the nearby resources. This is calcite, a new ore exclusive to Vulcanus that's predominantly used in lava-related recipes. When you mine calcite for the first time, you will unlock acid neutralization, which will turn sulfuric acid into steam. I'll talk about the other two recipes later. But before we start setting anything up, I hardly brought any supplies with me, so I'll definitely need to send over some base supplies later. Since Spacey McSpace platform is currently out of service, we'll make a new platform to use for deliveries. Spacey's downfall was a lack of firepower, so learning from its impending demise, FedEx here will have a lot more turrets. FedEx will be quite a bit larger too, so producing the ammo for all the turrets shouldn't be an issue. The impending has pended. So long, Space Cowboy. Back down on Navis, I expanded platform production a tad, since I have a feeling we're going to end up with quite a few platforms moving between planets in the future. A sushi belt for the asteroids and a few electric furnaces later, ammo production goes in the front, and rocket fuel in the back, which will pull items from these cargo bays. The thrusters may not tile directly side by side, but you can stagger them to make them slightly easier to connect to each other. We need quite a few platforms. This might take a while. After throwing accumulators and solar panels into all of the gaps, the platform will slowly start requesting all of the construction materials. Back on topic, you can also make tungsten carbide on Vulcanus, which is unlocked by mining a volcanic rock, which contains all of the basic resources, along with tungsten ore. We've been making carbon in space using asteroids, but now we can make it back on the ground with coal and sulfuric acid. And tungsten carbide is made with, well, tungsten and carbon. It's a good thing those rocks have all of the basic resources in them, otherwise I'd have to sit and wait until FedEx was done building. Anyways, Vulcanus also has geysers that you can plunk pump jacks down on top of for an unlimited supply of sulfuric acid, which I'll use to make some carbide. Making carbide would unlock the foundry, but we still need to unlock calcite processing. A couple swings later, that's calcite processing and the foundry. Along with acid neutralization, we can also condense steam into water and use calcite to turn coal into heavy oil. There's no oil fields on Vulcanus, so this is our only way of getting oil. The foundry takes steel, green circuits, carbide, refined concrete, and lubricant to make. We'll start working towards those. I'll stockpile some calcite for later, try running headfirst into lava, then set up some carbon production, since we're going to need a lot of carbide later. Time for some coal. Right now, we don't have any source of tungsten ore. All of it that we've gotten so far has been from mining rocks. The only tungsten patch that I can see is just off the map to the north here, but that's in Demolisher territory, so we'll just have to keep mining rocks for now. We'll eventually take out that Demolisher that protects the tungsten, but they have 30,000 health. No idea how we'll do that. Just to check, I walked around to reveal all of the borders, and that one patch to the north is indeed the only patch nearby. So, here's the plan. I'll design a small mining setup, which we can run in place to steal as much tungsten as we can before the Demolisher notices us. One small snag though, you can't mine tungsten with electric miners. It requires the big mining drill, which we can't make until we've made some foundries. So yet again, more rocks it is. Using acid neutralization, we can set up steam power, then we'll turn the excess steam into water and start making concrete and refined concrete. Now we need lube, so one minimal oil setup later, that's our first foundry. The foundry building has a crafting speed of 4, which can be improved with quality. It can make quite a few items, including big miners, other foundries, belts, pipes, and various copper and iron items. But most importantly, it can turn lava into molten metals. That's right. Behold, the key to infinite copper and iron production. After making a few more foundries, we'll pick up production and move it somewhere else. There's a big pool of lava to the left here that would be cool to build off of, but there's too many cliffs, so we'll put production over here. Looking at the tips and tricks, lava processing produces stone as a byproduct, but we can also destroy items by throwing them into lava. Offshore pumps look a little silly with lava in them. Making molten iron from lava takes 500 lava and 1 calcite, and produces 250 molten iron with 10 stone as a byproduct. Then we can pump that molten iron into another foundry to cast it into plates, which is pretty fast, and the foundries have a base productivity of 50% on top of that. You can also directly cast steel, which is a tad slower, and we're out of power. I shouldn't have torn down sulfuric acid production. After setting up a non-baker's dozen of steam engines, I cast pipes, which is super fast, then turn those pipes into underground pipes, which is even faster. You can also cast gears. Holy crap! The Demolisher protecting the tungsten, which I will call Tungsten Tobias, comes pretty close, but they shouldn't bother us as long as we stay off their desert-scaped lawn. We can cast concrete with the foundry as well, but it still needs water and bricks. So I get bricked up, struggle to count yellow squares, then cover the entire acid patch with pump jacks. Except for this one, we still don't have cliff explosives. I laid pipe, plugged it in, then here's oil production, so we can make more lube for the foundries. After casting my rod, I reeled in more refined concrete and made more foundries. We'll want a bus, but we can't go very far to the right because of demolisher territory. So we'd have to turn it and go downwards with it, which is ugly. I really need to take out Tobias. There isn't any major dedicated ammo production on Navis, and the bot mall is too slow for mass production. So whatever we need to take out that demolisher, we'll need to make on Vulcanus. I got belted, then undergrounded, and joined the military. Scaling up coal production, that'll go on the bus, and calcite will go right next to it. Our lava processing needs to be easily expanded later, so onto the bus goes a pipe of it, then I'll reserve a belt for tungsten. A line for stone destruction later. I'll hook in the calcite to start making molten iron, then copper. Making molten copper makes slightly more stone as byproduct, 15 instead of 10. Since they're free, I'll build tanks to stockpile the metals while I build. We should be making tungsten plates next, which takes tungsten and molten iron, but I'll put that off till we have a steady supply of tungsten ore. Instead, I'll make a mini mall for plates and such, then use my hunter-gatherer instincts to find more rocks. It feels weird throwing away the extra iron and copper ore from mining the rocks, but smelting it would be more effort than it's worth. Some wire for green circuits later. Our power supply is starting to struggle. Let's build more. Acid neutralization makes 10,000 steam in 5 seconds, or 2,000 per second. No need for a calculator anymore, since all of the machine rates are shown by the second in the tooltips. Steam engines consume 30 steam per second, which works out to just over 66 steam engines. All of that steam from one chemical plant is pretty crazy. I should also watch where I'm going. I'm getting pretty close to the edge of Tobias's territory. I'm a little close, aren't I? But as long as we don't build over the line, they won't attack us if we don't attack them. A bit of future-proofing later, I took a closer look at the small demolisher's stats. 30,000 health is already pretty crazy, but the terrifying part is the regeneration speed of 2,400 health per second. Small demolishers only have 10% poison resistance. We can definitely abuse that. I will get some more ammo upgrades though, just in case. Although we couldn't research it since our copper supply is dry, since we're completely out of coal. Nah. There's a nice patch down here, but I'm not sure if I can take out the biters next to it remotely. So we'll have to use the patch next to the iron belt. No defenses, because foreshadowing is my favorite narrative technique. FedEx is still under construction, but I'll keep working on it in the background. Tungsten carbide is up next. I'm not sure how much we'll need, so I'll keep it small. I forgot to plug in the second power plant, and once I plugged it in, we now have more power production than Navis. Since Tungsten Tobias is vulnerable to poison damage, we'll set up Baja Blast to take them out with. This is not Baja Blast, this is oil production. With heavy oil, we'll condensate some water, crack down to light, then crack down to petroleum, and lube for crafting. Simple coal liquefaction is quite slow though, so we'll need to expand this more later. Now for Baja, but there's not quite enough room to set it up, so I made the horrible decision to turn the bus around below the base. After bringing the fluids down as well, I realized I never bothered to check how big Tobias's territory is. After a very long walk, turns out they own a massive area that expands pretty far to the east. Taking them out is going to give us a lot of room to build in. After putting the bus back together, then adding gears and steel, we'll need to make green circuits for the Baja Blast. Checking the rates on the tooltips, the foundry can crank out 12 copper wire a second, and level 3 assemblers consume 7.5 wire per second for green circuits. Downgrading to a level 2 assembler drops the consumption to 4.5, which makes the ratios a bit cleaner. Then we'll put a foundry on the other side to make iron plates, and that's green circuits. Now for the Baja, coal, steel, and green circuits. Simple enough, but we'll need quite a few. So I'll crank them out. Using just Baja to kill Tobias seems a little risky, so we'll use turrets for backup. I made regular ammo, but since it's super easy to expand steel production, might as well turn it into red ammo. FedEx is almost done, but as it turns out, you can't pull items out of cargo bays, so I'll have to redesign a little bit. Just waiting on solar panels and the final cargo bay now, then I noticed there's a space map. Neat. You can also see the asteroid spawn rates between planets, which is nice. Lots of manual intervention and debitering later, solar makes its way up, and FedEx will start making ammo. While I was working on the platform, we made probably too much Baja, and even more red ammo. We should be ready to take out Tobias now. A couple turrets later, I headed up and intercepted them with enough Baja Blast to kill a 12th century peasant. But even this massive trail of Baja wasn't enough, so the turrets took quite a beating. Eventually, though, good night, Tobias. When a demolisher dies, they leave behind a corpse of rocks, which are filled with tungsten, but the smoke that lingers nearby is electrically charged, to which my bots are mildly allergic. After mining the rocks by hand for a while, the smoke did eventually clear, so back come the bots. With the tungsten patch now under our jurisdiction, we'll need some big miners for it. Time for electric engines. But the base looks very stupid with the U-turn, and I'm not turning it around a second time, so I tore the whole thing out and put it back on top, which took a lot of cleanup, and resulted in quite a few material management minigames. After tearing down a good 90% of it, I realized I could unlock a few levels of worker robot speed. I should have done that earlier. The third level was also the first research we've done with utility science. I'll upgrade it a bit more while I work on FedEx. After setting up some more bots and roboports, our package is out for delivery to Vulcanus. It went pretty well, but the platform needs just a few more turns. Once the truck arrived, it threw the packages down onto the ground like a true FedEx carrier, then sped back to Navis. A few tiny explosions later, I'll replace my 2 pairs of exoskeletons with 4 additional personal roboports. 50 robots with 5 levels of speed upgrades is already pretty crazy. I can't imagine how fast this would get with quality. After ensuring the wheels on the bus do in fact go round and round, I made our first big mining drill, which mines 2.5 ores per second and has a 50% chance to not deplete the resources it's mining from, which can also be improved with quality. Crafting it also unlocked tungsten plates, which is made of tungsten ore and molten iron. 1 belt later, down goes the miner.
To make the tungsten plates,
No.
we need to mix tungsten.
Not yet. I made some more drills to improve output. Then we can start making the plates. The plates don't have any complications like byproducts, so setting them up is super easy. Making our first tungsten plate unlocked the Metallurgic Science Pack, which takes tungsten carbide, plates, and molten copper. So down it goes, and I only have productivity 1 modules on hand at the moment, so I'll put those in. Along with the 50% bonus productivity from the foundry, they should be pretty cheap to make. To get it back to Navis, we'll need a rocket silo, but you can't launch rocket silos since they're too heavy, so we'll have to make it on site. We'll also need the ingredients for the rocket, so time for plastic and red circuits. I will launch over some beacons and better productivity modules though. Now for blue circuits. Having acid on hand makes them extra simple. Although we do need to upgrade green circuits now, and with how much plastic we consume, we'll need more oil production as well, but that's a piece of cake. But we're not allowed to have cake and eat it too, so biters took a swing at the new coal mine. The bots make quick work of them with laser turrets. Next up on the rocket ingredient list is low density structure, which we can cast in the foundry directly. Just add plastic. They're not super fast, but the built-in productivity definitely helps. We don't have any fancy new ways to make rocket fuel yet, so we'll just yank the setup from Navis. How about some more? One material gathering nightmare for the rocket silo later, I'll place it down, but before we can plug everything in, the foundries are sucking back so much power that we need a 3rd steam setup. 1 belt at a time, I brought everything over to the silo. After adding more metal production to feed everything, I had to upgrade the garbage disposal. The amount of byproduct stone we produce is quite impressive. Power started to falter, we're out of sulfuric acid. Apparently, this whole patch just couldn't keep up with demand. Or I just forgot to plug half of it in. Continuing to follow the chain, the new weakest link is tungsten carbide. After making the carbide abide, we're making metallurgic science pretty quickly, but I'll remove the beacons, since the more foundries we use, the more productivity we get. With the rest of the belts hooked up to the rocket, here comes our first one. Using rockets from Vulcanus, we can send materials up to FedEx using logistics requests, and deliver them back to Navis, along with the science of course. Speaking of science, expanding the labs is a no-no, so more lab speed. Since we're shipping down more than just sciences to Navis, we should have a separate landing pad for just materials, but turns out, you can only place 1 landing pad on each surface. So we'll have to remove the science pad, and use logistics robots to deliver it instead. After setting the requests on the landing pad, and building more rocket silos because I felt like it, I'll send out FedEx for pickup. But nothing got launched up. It turns out, the silos only set filters when they have logistics requests turned on, and when they're turned on, you can't insert items into the silo manually. I manually sent a load up, but we'll need to bring back logistics spots to fill the rocket with. Back over on Navis, FedEx launches down all of the materials one by one. Navis doesn't have enough materials on hand to build another rocket at the moment, so we'll have to use FedEx to make a delivery of rocket materials and copper. While I was waiting on the frames, I moved the silo over and started planning out more silos. Automatic deliveries are working now. There's a few kinks that I still have to fix, but it'll work for now. After building the additional silos, we are, understandably, low on plastic. The oil refineries didn't have quite enough coal, so I upgraded the mine. It's still a tad slower than I'd like, but we'll have to deal with it later. I'll head back to Navis. Almost forgot the science. Back down on the ground with the science in hand, we can pick our first research with the Metallurgic Science Pack. Asteroid reprocessing looks pretty cool. It would allow us to roll the dice for a chance to transmute chunks into a different type, but there's also a 20% chance that we'd lose the chunk entirely. There's also better coal liquefaction, which makes more oil without calcite. I wish I saw this before I left Vulcanus. Asteroid reprocessing it is. Sending resources to other planets from Vulcanus in bulk sounds like a decent long-term strategy, but we'll definitely have to go back and improve the factory just a tad. But I'd rather do something new than fix something old. Time to research Fulgora, which is a planet covered with an ocean of oil and seasoned lightly with lightning. But we'll have to go there next time. I'd like to take a moment to thank my supporters on Ko-fi. Vulcanus seems pretty awesome, assuming the balancing doesn't change too much. Making basic materials in bulk there and shipping them out seems like it'll be the new meta. But depending on what Fulgora is like, it might make more sense to launch up finished products from there. I have no idea. And that's all for today. My name's DocJade. Bye-bye.
When a demolisher dies, they leave behind a corpse of rocks. There we do need to upgrade the green circuits.